Good evening. This is the Raleigh Finance Committee meeting of October 8th, 2013, and the time is 7:19. Call the meeting to order. And first item is to approve minutes. I think we have, going back to the minutes of August 6th, that we made corrections on last week. There was two typographical errors and one other correction. I think that we all were aware of it. It's not in your handbook. It was our handout this evening, but you had them last week. So can we approve without reviewing the minutes again? Do you feel comfortable that, I think we had Jamie was not absent, and so the comments by Jamie were made by Karen, and then there was another little correction. Do you want to postpone it again, or do you want to just vote on it and
I think we should
Let's
vote on it. Vote on it.
Which
Vote
meeting
on
you
it,
talking
put
about,
up.
Larry? I'm just taking notes for Debbie.
August 6th? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of August 6th?
Aye.
Okay, by Peter, second. Somebody, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Karen. Any other discussion?
I will abstain, I was not here.
Okay.
I will abstain as well.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? 2 abstentions. Okay, the next one is the minutes of October 1st. Those are in your handout. You can take a quick look. The only thing that I noticed is on the second page, item 5, where it says Larry White said this is an open item. Instead of this, I just add the free cash.
Do you have an extra copy in your package? Do you have an extra?
Here, yeah.
Is that extra? Okay. Thank you.
If you want, we can just, briefly go over it, and if we don't see any other corrections, I think we can just go ahead and approve it with that one correction.
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes. I will second that.
I'll abstain. I'll abstain too.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Let's see, Sharon, who seconded it?
I second it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Next on the agenda is a special town meeting warrant.
Good to move.
So this is gonna take a while to go through, but
No, you need to substitute your last page with this page. If I could just, I can staple that, Sean. Thanks. Oh, it's double-sided, I'm sorry. All right, so just, you know what, just staple it. I have Article 17 is on this page. You know what, let me take your warrant.
You okay?
You go through it, but just use this as your.
Got one in?
Thanks, I can staple it. Sorry about that.
Did it change?
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. Sorry about it myself. And You want to staple it? Okay.
Okay, let's start by reviewing the articles, and I guess the first one that we need to look at is Article 4. Transfer amount of money. I'm not gonna read the articles, I'll just let you look at them.
I'll make a motion that we approve that article.
Okay,
And I will second.
all right. Any discussion, or does anybody need any more time? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, Finance Committee recommends. Article 5. This is collective bargaining.
I'll make a motion to approve Article 5.
Janet.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion, or anybody needs extra time?
I'll abstain.
Okay. All in favor of recommending this, signify by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Article 5 is Finance Committee recommends. Article 6. Another collective bargaining agreements between the town and
I'll make a motion that we accept that article.
A second.
All right, any further discussion, or anybody needs extra time? All in favor of recommending Article 6?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Article 6 is recommended. Article 7, another collective bargaining.
I'll make a motion that we approve this one. I listened to this selectmen's meeting last night.
Wasn't this going to be raised to 8,000, or did?
It was
No.
fine.
That was-
It's a transfer from the collective bargaining reserve line in the water budget,
Okay,
and it's going into the overtime line.
all right.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Finance Committee recommends. Article 8, Community Preservation Fund. This is for the studying for the Girl Scout camp property for the 187 acre possible purchase.
I'll make a motion that we pass this, or we approve this article.
Okay,
I'll
by
second.
Karen and Janet. Any other discussion?
Other than I think it's an excellent idea. Beautiful property
Mm.
up there.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Finance Committee recommends. Article 10. Disposing of a van.
No.
No, sorry.
9.
9. $18,000 we use for costs associated with Bradstreet Farm.
What does this mean?
I'd like to know how they came up
Yeah.
with that number.
Well, I don't understand what it's, if it's
Yeah.
already owned by the town, what is the conservation, preservation?
We're under the law, someone has to have conservation restriction on the property to make sure that it's perpetually under restriction. And normally it can be the state. At the time, the state wanted to be the person in charge of the conservation restriction when we did this previously, and the recommendation at that time, this was back about 3 or 4 years ago now, was no, because the state put a number of restrictions that basically they were gonna be in charge, and if there were any issues, they were gonna charge us any and all costs to rectify the issues. So we said no, so basically it's kinda laid fallow until now. Brent's and the Conservation Commission have realized that we need to have someone to do it, so what they've done is talk to the Audubon Society, who have a couple of other pieces of property in town under restriction. And for that sum of money, they will do all the work related to getting the legal work done and the surveying work, as well as they will, on a yearly basis, check the property by one of their people to make sure that there's no violations of the conservation restriction. So it's something it's a normal process, and it costs money to do it, and this is the money to do that. It's just something that, because we rejected the state doing it originally, it needs to be done now by some other agency, and conservation feels that Audubon has presented the best package, mainly because they will come in on a yearly basis and make a report and let the Conservation Commission know that the property is being kept in the proper condition that it needs to be unimproved.
And this amount is significantly less than what the state DCR had for, they were 35,000,
Was it, I don't remember what the figure was.
so this is actually less.
We don't really have any choice. I
Your
mean,
third
it's one of
party
those-
has to hold it if you use CPA money to purchase the land, so there is a
Okay.
third party entity that then has a restriction on the property to add another layer of protection, even though it's Article 97 conservation land.
Anyway, that's what I needed. We had to have a third party. I didn't understand that.
So why is it different than any other pieces of property that we have in the past? Why is this different?
It isn't. In other words,
We've always had to pay these fees for
every piece of conservation land has to have a deed restriction on it for protection, and they all cost money to do it.
So what about the Bradstreet? That's conservation
That's-
land too.
It's-
They have this type.
This is it. This is the Bradstreet one. This is the one that puts it on the
Oh, this is the
conservation.
Brad, oh, I see
file.
Bradstreet, yeah, because I saw the Mass Audubon Society and.
Yeah,
I
they will
got
be the ones that will
confused.
hold the,
Oh, I get it, okay.
Well, I make a recommendation that we approve Article 9.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of recommending it?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, now, Article 10. Council on Aging trading in their van.
I'll make a motion that we approve this. Well, sounds like a good idea to me.
Okay. Sharon,
So at this point, is this just trading it in, and then there'd be another article to purchase?
no, they have
No.
2 vans. And they really only need one, so, what they're doing is trading in the older one,
Yeah.
Actually not trading,
or
selling.
selling.
So is that all they're doing is selling? But I thought they wanted to get a minivan. I don't see the cost of the minivan.
Down here, they don't know the cost of the minivan. It says that, if the proceeds of it
Okay.
will not cover, then they have the Emerson Trust and,
Okay.
Friends of the Council on Aging to fill in the difference.
Very good.
We are appropriating it by, and I worked on this and ran it by the
Yeah.
town's attorney, so we have to dispose of it through a town meeting vote. And we also, in that one article, wanted to have the ability, so we say, and to appropriate the proceeds of sales. So we get the bill for this,
Yeah.
we'll tie it back to this warrant article budget. And then they'll get supplementary funds from other sources.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Okay, have a motion by Sharon,
I'll second.
second by Janet. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Recommends Article 11. What exactly is this article doing? Is it
It's just a
just
bookkeeping
a
article. In other words,
bookkeeping?
we borrowed $2,500,000 to construct the bridges. We received back from the federal government and some state money to pay their share of the reconstruction of the bridges. The rest of it we're paying out of the tax rate on a yearly basis for the bond. So this just clears the book so that it's no longer sitting there as borrowed money under the original borrowing. So it's just strictly a bookkeeping error, so the books are clear on that particular project. We're still paying the bonds off, but this clears up the original bond purchasing.
So is it money that would be available for other things then, once it's?
Eventually, yeah. In other words, it wasn't an override, it was paid for out of the regular tax rate, so our
Okay.
portion.
How much is left?
I'm not sure what should be.
So where does
I
this
can just tell
money?
you what we appropriated to.
Yeah.
There's no money, actually, there's no money, nothing happening with any money here. It's strictly getting this original article cleared. And it's and the bond issue is still on the books, and we pay the bond issue.
Yeah, we appropriated 25,000 for bridge repair principal in fiscal 14, and we have 11,550 in interest, so it's just going down on a debt repayment schedule.
I believe it was a 20-year
I think so.
20-year note, if I remember correctly. But this doesn't take anything away or add anything. All it does is just take it off Karen's and the treasurer's books and for the audit purposes and all that. It just.
So like instead of the 2.5 million, if this were the exact amount of the bond, then this article wouldn't be here, right?
Yeah, what we did is we authorized to borrow $2.5 million. We borrowed, I'm not sure if we borrowed that whole amount or not. This goes back once again to 2006 and 7. But
Right.
And then what we did was, along the way, the federal government and the state government, particularly the feds, that they reimbursed us 75%. And so that money was put towards paying the bond off, or reimbursing us for those costs, so that we were responsible for the remaining 25% is the way, I guess the state kind of reneged on what they were supposed to pay us, so it's, typical state, but,
Were they gonna repay 100% initially?
well, that's what they were talking about, but it never.
But I think the way, when it happened, we had to borrow the entire amount of the cost because there
Yes.
was no guarantee that any of the funding would be reimbursed. So
We had to pay
that's
up
why
front.
that money is such a large amount. But the expectation was that the majority of it would be reimbursed.
Okay.
We have to pay it up front, and then we get reimbursed as the construction project went along. The feds did reimburse us their 75%, the state was talking about reimbursing us the remaining 25%, plus there was some costs that nobody was gonna reimburse. That related to police details and some other such things that they don't reimburse. But the state kinda, I don't think they even passed the bill. There was originally 12.5%. They were supposed to pass a bill to pay everybody the other 12.5. I don't think that ever got passed, and there was some issues with their 12.5. But anyway, so all this does is it just says, okay, fine, we borrowed the 2.5 million, we can take it off the books. Whatever we owe was, the bonds were reissued to the proper amount, and we've been reimbursed, and this kinda just cleans it off the books.
Okay, well, I make
Okay.
a motion, we approve Article 11.
Okay, I have a motion.
Okay.
Okay, I'll second.
Both of you seconded
Yeah,
it?
2 seconds.
2 seconds.
We'll fight for it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Finance Committee recommends Article 11. Article 12.
And I don't think this is an article that we make a recommendation on.
No.
Recommendation required for
Right.
it's a money article.
Right.
Okay. We can still recommend, it just doesn't count.
Well, I think it's an
Okay.
excellent idea.
Sure is.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sure is.
Okay, Article
Same-
13.
That's the
Oh,
same thing.
right. Okay, Article 13. Not required, Finance Committee. 14.
This one here is a way of explanation. When the planning board approved the subdivision for the Sheehan Estates, it's happened in a number of other subdivisions. By the time the subdivision was constructed, the builder, contractor bailed out
Yeah.
and left the town holding the surety, which in this case is $22,377.
Is
So
that in?
because the contractor's long gone, we have to get an appropriation of that money. It's nothing out of our pocket, it's in the bank, being held in the bank in escrow. It just allows us to spend the money to finish off the subdivision.
And is that enough to finish it off?
And it's gonna have to be, because it's.
It's all we have.
It's all we have,
Mm.
yeah.
Okay.
So that'll finish it off to the point, what we're trying to do is get it finished off so that it probably, when that work is done, then that street will ultimately be to the standards that we can accept at a future town meeting, maybe in the spring, if not next fall, depending on how quickly the work gets done.
This has happened before, when I was on the planning board.
Yeah.
Case in point, Saunders Lane.
Saunders Lane,
Hmm.
part of Green Needle,
Green Needle.
Christopher Road,
It would go on
It's
and
all
on.
over.
Trowbridge
we have
Circle.
people don't have street lights because
Mhm.
we can't plow
Hmm.
it, the town can't legally plow private road, with public
Hmm.
taxpayer money, and so.
What has to be done
it's-
on Gerzak?
There's a punch list of some items, I don't have my file here,
Hmm.
I don't think it's much. The planning board's engineer went down with the highway surveyor and looked at it. I think there's some catch basin, cleaning offhand, and,
They gotta get the streetlights working.
yeah, those
So
won't be
just-
turned on by the people can pay for them, but they won't, until the spring town
Hmm.
meeting when we accept it. If the townspeople accept it, then they can get turned on and paid for by the town, but there's just a few small things, that need to be done. And that will also include, having the town's engineer, civil engineer, develop the street acceptance plan and the final as-built that needs to be signed off, so we can put it on at the spring town meeting. I think it's some catch basin work and,
But all that'll be covered by this
that's
22,000?
all we'll be able to do. Unfortunately, when we take over the project and we'll run it out of this office, there's prevailing wage rates and things that are gonna get the cost up higher than had the developer just done it
Right.
himself.
So is any action being done, like, with the planning board for future, to make it worth the developer's while to finish the work and, like, more, have more in escrow than the
That
work's
was
actually
brought up
made?
at our
When
meeting.
they came, it's
and
difficult, they,
It's extremely difficult, and what they're talking about, we're talking about in the future is just requiring a much larger bond issue,
Yeah,
because their bond doesn't really cover, when they set the bond size, the bond amount, they weren't looking at prevailing wage rates and, 5, 10 years down the road when the price of everything is going up, so.
right.
It's one of those things that it just happens, and they're much more, with a town planner now, it's, a lot of these things will be followed up a lot better than what they were in previous years when there was, things were not going quite so smoothly in the planning board office down there in terms of follow-up, but with a town planner on board, and those kinds of things, these are the things that, it's like the punch list in your house. You build a house and you get to the end, there's a punch list, and you can't get the contractor back to finish it up. Well, that's exactly what happens here, and it's, at least we got a bond so we can finish it off, and hopefully in the next year or year and a half, it'll all be completed. I think the biggest amount we lose is that the selectman's office has to do all the bidding and the bid work. We just absorb that, and it's just time that they can't spend doing other projects that they have
Right.
to do, spend time on this, but just something needs to get done, and it's another one of those cleanup things that, we just need to do it and catch up, and hopefully moving forward in the new subdivisions, it'll be less of a problem.
Are all developers, are they required to put street lighting in? Or who
That's
covers
all
that?
by the planning board that
Planning
does
board.
all those, they're the ones that do the whole thing, all we're doing here is.
Yeah, but I just was curious because I know, even in the subdivision where I lived, that they have done some areas and left some alone, I just.
There was a big
wondering how
discussion
that
years
happened.
ago about that, I
I
don't
don't-
recall how
that-
it went, but.
I'm not sure about that development. It was the Green Needle development.
Yeah.
They were going to put lighting in there, I heard, and, I don't know, developer, did he walk away from that?
You walked
particular
away
one?
from that one too.
Yeah.
And that happens every once in a while, and sometimes you have a tri-party developer, and two will walk away, and one is stuck with it. That's happened before. The planning board does its best, tries to do due diligence in trying to hold these developers, and trying to keep that bond, but you're right, I mean, as Dave, who was it mentioned, a larger bond, that would be and of course, the developer's always coming in saying, I need money, to finish it off, and asking for money and things sometimes. And some of these developments go, 4, 5, 6 years, and things, fall apart, especially when you get into like the 11th year.
Plus, once we hit the recession there, and, a lot of these things, companies went belly up and so on and so forth, so it's, those kinds of things happen. And this developer apparently is long gone, so. Once again, it's one of those routine things that doesn't, other than the administrator's time and secretarial time here in the office, it's just something that, get the road set up so those people who live there and pay taxes will be able to get the road accepted and
Right.
get the services that they expect the town to provide. And they already actually pay for on their tax rate.
Well, I make a motion that we approve Article 14.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second.
Janet, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. 14 is recommended. Let's
15 has
see.
no money associated,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, 15 you
Yeah.
don't have to do.
There's no money in marijuana.
There's no money in a
There will be.
moratorium,
Not yet.
not in a moratorium.
Nobody wants it.
So that's for that in section 8.9.3. So Article 16, I guess is next.
When did this happen?
Last night.
Oh. Really?
Yes.
So why is this money transferred to maintenance expense, or we paying?
We had a long
Somebody.
discussion at the meeting last night. Basically, what Laura Hamilton has resigned
Yeah,
as of October 18th, I think it is, I'm not sure of
I
that.
think
Right.
that's what you said last
I may
night.
have the date wrong, so it leaves that position vacant.
okay.
So in terms of looking at where we're going with the water department, in terms of possibly contracting out some of its services, it was felt, and the water board voted that they would hire a temporary person or a company under a contract basis to finish the fiscal year.
This is just for the accounting, billing,
Yeah, basically to fulfill the business manager's duties. And they have some new people up there, a new administrative assistant. And it's a matter of looking at, instead of running out and hiring a replacement right now, it gives us the option to take a look at the whole operation. And if in fact, for the next fiscal year, we see how this works out, and, we can then, if we decide, or the water department decides, they're the ones that make the decision, beyond the taxpayers who vote the articles here, but
Yeah.
it gives them the option to recommend that they either hire a replacement for the business manager, and or if this contract operation works out, to replace the position of the contract to a private company. And it could or could not be expanded depending on where they want to go from there. But just, it leaves the options wide open as we move forward, at the same time provides some expertise, and hopefully we'll get someone in. There's a couple of different water companies that have talked to the water board and are willing to provide various services for a contract fee, but they're ones that do this for a living and as a business, and hopefully we can tap their expertise and
Sure.
experience, and also work with whatever one might get the bid to make recommendations on how we proceed, just to get the whole operation back in sync with what we need to do.
As Dave said, it was a very long discussion last night that we had, and this will fund it from now right until July 1st. So all that $32,000 will go for the contract services. As we talked last night, Larry,
Right.
You brought up the point about splitting the money, and that would be, we need to go one direction or the other direction, in this direction.
well, actually, you could take it from the general, I'm not gonna belabor it, but there's probably more than enough money in the regular wages line, because, you know, the secondary operator, the second secondary is not funded, or was unfunded or unfilled for 4 months. The primary and the first secondary were also late in starting, so there was funds available there. But, you know, if they doing it that way, that they would have an option of going back for a business manager. This basically doesn't, you know, and that's the way they want to go. That's, you know, that's
Well,
their decision.
And the water board decided last night, they have contract services, and again, somebody comes in, doesn't work out, they can go to another contract services to do the account.
Right.
So, it has that flexibility in it.
I think
Right, I mean, it should work out, you know, unless the peach tree that they use is so obsolete that nobody wants to touch it, type of a thing.
Well, that's something I think will be looked at in this interim period. But I think what we looked at really, or my thinking in discussing it last night, was that if we take the business manager's remaining salary, it makes it very clear that this is a position that we're contracting out. And at this point, there's no money left to hire someone, so we have to contract it out if this article passes, so that the public and the townspeople are clear about where the money's coming from, and it's not going anywhere else but to a business manager position. So we're not taking wages from the secondary operator and transferring them over. This is money that's already allocated for a business manager, and all we're doing is, or all the water board has voted to do with our support, is say, okay, fine, we'll take those wages, and we'll contract it out for the remainder of the fiscal year. Now, if we head towards the spring town meeting, and for some reason things aren't working out, well, at the spring special town meeting, we can always vote for the last 2 months to do something different, so, I mean, hopefully we won't need to and won't want to, but, you know, there is that option. So this is just try to make it as clear, as simple and as clear as possible, and so the townspeople, when they read this article, it's business manager position to business manager position, and all we're doing is giving them the authority to contract it out
And
and
there's been,
go
you
from
know,
there.
And the water department's had, you know, a lot of issues and a lot of turmoil, and this, I think, helps stabilize doing it this way, going to contract work.
And it'll bring in, the other thing is it really brings in an outside person to help us that hasn't been directly involved in everything else that's gone on. So we get and hopefully if we get one of the companies that provides these types of water service contracts, that they will be able to come in and take a look at, you know, what we're doing. If Peachtree isn't the right software, then, you know, what is the industry standard now? It could well have changed. I mean, there's a lot of things here in terms of the billing and all that other sort of stuff that the water department really needs to take a look at. And are we doing it efficiently? Are we doing it the best way possible? And by having contracting it out, I mean, right now it's a 40-hour position. And look, when they write the RFP, it might be you could do it for 20 or 25 hours, a contract, rather than the 40. So it isn't necessarily, we're hoping we don't spend this whole $32,000 for that, but we'll really have to,
Well, you
have a
shouldn't,
company
because,
come in
you know,
and take a
the-
look and see, do we really need a 40-hour
Yeah.
position? Maybe we don't with the other staff that's up there, but we just don't know. So
Right.
this opens that door to really start looking in depth at the water department process, and if we need to change it, how do we best change it? And
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
very clear to the
you shouldn't,
taxpayer.
because the business manager performed a lot more than just the, you know, accounting and things like that, so, on the surface at least, it looks like, you know, it should, you shouldn't overrun this at all, and it should be,
Right.
you know, basically almost, half of this, but again, time will tell.
And the other thing up there in the past, you know, in the past few months, the superintendent's been out on some sick leave, and so the business manager's been doing multiple types of duties that really aren't within that job description. In fact, at the last time at this annual town meeting, we appropriated some extra money to reimburse her for some of the extra work that she did above and beyond the business manager. So now we're trying to get back to what the business manager does, and all related to the financial aspect of what goes on up there, and this is what we're hoping to get back to here.
Again, we're looking back, you know, the turmoil that we've had over the past year and a half up at the water department. I think, you know, it's the Board of Selectmen oversight that we put in, and to give stabilization, to stand behind the, you know, the water commissioners and help them, you know, bring the water department back.
Right.
I think that's an important thing, and then, you know, as the Board of Selectmen, that's what we're doing.
Okay, any other discussion?
I make a motion that we approve this.
Okay,
I'll second that.
Karen and Jamie. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Finance Committee recommends.
Article 17. They've started
Mhm.
putting the wiring in for the Independence Street side.
Right, they've dug the trenches
Yeah,
and run the underground wires,
Yeah.
and reseeded
Yeah.
the ground there.
They still have to come and put the 2 trees in front of the funeral home. They haven't come to,
Right,
come to do
that's
that
part
yet.
of the thing to be done. And this is a way of explanation. I was at that CPC meeting that discussed this, and this will give them enough money to put lights on Independence Street. And then they're probably gonna be coming back next year looking to do some sidewalk work and some further lighting.
This is gonna put, no, the lights on Independence Street are being done by the light department.
Right, but
This-
we have to buy the fixtures, and
They were gonna provide them.
That's not what Dan Sapansky told
that's not what,
me.
That's what they told me at the.
they were providing them, but I think we were paying for them, is the way I understood it.
To pay for the cost of the fixtures, but they will install them.
I misunderstood at the meeting then. I thought that the light department was providing everything for the lighting on Independence Street.
Right.
That this money was gonna go for, like, down Summer Street or Main Street.
Yeah, the highway and the light department are providing all the labor.
Yeah.
And they're like $3,000 a fixture for the, these antique type fixtures, so. The way it was said it left at the CPC meeting anyway, is that
Okay,
this
well-
money would be, and they'll see, cause they gotta do some tree transfers and some other work related to cutting those trees down. They gotta purchase 2 new trees and so on and so
Yeah,
forth.
you changed the work order by $3,000 to take care of taking down the 2 trees and putting 2 more in.
Right. So then this covers the work for the electrical fixtures.
Okay, well, it's my misunderstanding,
Okay.
because I assumed from coming from the meetings I was at, that the light department was providing those fixtures on Independence Street.
That isn't what I interpreted.
Dan Sapansky was in last week, this meeting, and as I recall, he said that they had money put aside for the trees. They hadn't expended all the money for the light.
Well, I know,
fixtures.
but I was under the understanding that this was going to be for additional, not just Independent, that Independent was already being done. I could very well be wrong, but that was what I came out of a meeting with.
Okay, I'm just recalling.
Yeah.
What Dan said, and as I recall, Dan said that there was money put aside, okay, because they didn't expend all the money on trees.
Right.
For the light fixtures. So that's what he said. Do you remember that, Deb?
Well, I guess the bottom line was they were gonna, whether that covers, you know, if you're correct, Sharon, you may be,
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember now exactly what
Yeah.
was said. I was under the impression that the light department was doing all the work.
Yeah, that's
And-
what I was
and
under
that
the impression of
CPC was
too.
buying the
that-
fixtures, but if
Right.
in fact they're buying those fixtures, then this money would be put towards buying the fixtures that are gonna go down
Mm.
Summer Street. And if in fact more money is needed, they would look at going back
I think
next year for,
that's what Dan said, that we're coming back to.
they would be looking back, because by then they'll know exactly what the costs are and so on and so forth. But at this point, they just wanted to, the light department, the highway department were ready to bury the power line underground and ready to, the fixtures could be purchased with the amount of money available as long as we change the article to allow that to happen. So that's what this basically is.
How much money are we talking about?
If all stays on course, they should have 39,511 after the change order. That was issued for the 2 additional trees.
So that may allow for more of the fixtures too.
Yeah,
It
that's
may
what I'm
be-
saying,
you
that's a
may-
lot more
You may
than
be
that.
right
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of what's the whole project is. And there was some question about eventually redoing the sidewalk and maybe putting a sidewalk in along Independence Street also. But
No, I don't
that's
know.
in the future.
I don't know how many of you realize that the telephone poles on Independence Street are in the
In the
street.
street.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Of course.
And they have a lot of difficulty plowing or parking
But they
cars
do.
there,
But they do.
things, so. And there are no houses hooked to those poles, so they can come down with no problem.
But there's cable on those poles.
No,
There's no.
not on Independence Street. It's just the street lighting.
Yeah, I think it's just the wiring for the
Yeah,
streetlights.
just for the
That's all.
street lighting,
The
yes.
poles and
There
the
was
wires are dedicated for those
One,
streetlights on
one pole
Independence.
that they had to move, and that is on the other side of the street now where they had the gas break.
I'm glad you're calling them telephone poles, because Bob, Mary, and I always have a dispute over that.
I know.
Utility poles.
All-purpose poles.
I grew up with them being telephone poles.
Me too.
Well, I move that we recommend Article 17.
Okay, I have a motion by Jamie,
I'll second.
thank you, Karen. Any other discussion?
We'll just make sure that Dan's at the meeting so he can explain
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Because your question is a good one, and I'm sure it'll come up at town meetings, so we'll just make sure we have, I'm sure he'll be there, but if he's not, we'll have an explanation
Yeah,
for exactly.
and I will abstain because I am on the common committee.
And the common committee has done a splendid job. They really have.
Looks lovely.
They
Sure
sure
has.
have.
Coming along real nice.
Sure has.
Thanks to the person that donated all his time and energy to do all the planning,
Who's that?
Looks great.
Steve Harriman.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't want to be on the committee. He was very emphatic about that, but he wanted to do the work, and he saved us all this money.
Looks
They did a
great.
great job.
Wonderful
Great.
job.
Yes.
I gotta say, and the committee did a tremendous job.
Yes, they have.
Okay, any other discussion, comments? All in favor of recommending Article 16?
Aye.
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 Isn't that 17?
17.
Yeah. And you got my
You're
abstention?
abstaining, yes.
Okay.
Is it-
Okay. Recommends, that's Article 17 instead of 16. And let's see, that's it for articles. Right? Okay.
Just check what Larry was talking about.
Let's go back to our schedule. Second item is
He
the
had a question about it.
Finance Committee participation. Jamie and Sharon, you're both going
Just check
to
exactly what he was talking
figure out how you want to handle
about. Just a minor.
the
We'll decide that,
recommendations.
right?
Right, that's up to
Okay,
you.
change.
The rest of us
There
will
are
be
two
there
that I can't get up on. That's
in body as well as spirit, please. And with that, just a special, a reminder rather, that the town meeting is November 4th, 7:30 at Pine Grove School. The town's participation is greatly appreciated at the meeting. Next is topics for future meetings. We still have the open item on free cash. I'll try to get with Sue sometime this week to kind of get an idea of when she might be available to talk with us on that.
We don't usually get that till it gets closer to town meeting, do we?
Yeah, they're not even close
Yeah,
to getting
it's
it
not
done.
time.
We just, the assessors, we're just getting
Mhm.
their piece done on the values.
Yeah.
They got those certified today for the DOR, so she's got a lot of work to do
Yeah,
before
before
that
the-
even gets filed.
Right.
So anything that when it does, we use that for budgeting for fiscal 15.
Right, but I just want to get an idea,
It's too
rather
early.
than, well, we've been carrying this for about 4 meetings now, just to get an idea of when that might be, whether it's months or
Probably.
whatever, so that we have, just
Yeah.
not to keep it too long as an open item, that's all.
Yeah, well, it is something that we usually find out what do we have for free cash as we get much closer to the annual town meeting.
Right.
They have to set the tax rate and other things first.
Okay, anything else?
Next meeting? Will we
All right.
have another one before town meeting or just plan to meet at town meeting?
I don't think we need another meeting before then, not that I know of.
Usually, well, in the past, we've sometimes met at 7 just to open up a meeting in case there's any other last minute things that need to be voted on, but that's just an option.
We usually do that occasionally,
Mhm.
because
Okay, you want to meet at 7 o'clock at Pine Grove on
Sure.
November 4th?
Sure.
Now, you want to count that as our regular monthly meeting?
Yep.
Good.
Any-
Yes.
good,
Good.
unless something comes up that we need to handle, then you can call a special finance meeting.
Yeah, let's just go for if we look at December, the meeting would be December 10th at 7:15.
Okay.
Is that all right with everybody?
I'm so used to coming at 7:15 throws me. I sit home and say, it's not time to leave yet.
I come 15 minutes early.
Okay.
Okay, anything else?
All set?
I'll make a
That's
motion
it.
to adjourn.
Okay, Sharon has a motion.
I'll second.
Janet second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No opposed, none. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Okay.